So there is a pattern with the PMI questions, simply because either they're asking you like a definition or a process or a rule in case of Agile, and or they ask you something specific. For example, what I highlight on the screen, if you have a 2 weeks delay, looking into a scope baseline or looking into the 4 values of Agile will not help you too much. So in that sense, that is not really helping. But there I would say how the questions are really categorized internally for the exam. Now, here's the first one. Which of the following would not be part of your quality management plan? Quality standards and roles, minimum viable product, quality tools to be used, major procedures for dealing with non-conformance. Now, I'm giving a couple of ropes on the right-hand side, which will just simply helping you to think through that what can be the correct answer. If you know the correct answer, feel free to put it into the chat itself. Perfect. One for LinkedIn. Okay, have a look. Okay, answers are coming in. Perfecto. So let's have a look. So the way I would like to, solve this question will be something like, is this Agile / waterfall or BA related? Now, if I look into this, which one will not be part of your quality management plan? You need to remember the only place you have quality management plan is going to be waterfall. Now, this might sound, let's say, an extra step, but you need to remember, you have 3 hours to finish 150 questions. If you do the math, you have over 1 minute for every question, so you really need to be prepared. Now, these questions will help you to set the mindset and to make sure you answer them correctly, not just by question 5, but also question 135 as well, okay? So if this is waterfall, any term which is not waterfall definitely can be a good candidate for correct answer. So number 1, quality standards and roles. Is it a waterfall term? Yes. So we're looking what is not. So this is definitely a waterfall term. Minimum viable product, that is an Agile term. So that is most likely a correct answer. Quality tools, again, quality tools on Agile, there are no quality tools at all. Then major procedures and non-conformance. Now, without even understanding what a non-conformance is, procedures on Agile, there are no procedures, and there is non-conformance either. So correct answer will be B, because that will be the minimum viable product. Why is that? Because this is a waterfall term, this is a waterfall term, this is a waterfall term, and this is simply an Agile term. Okay? Bonus question. How we call the minimum viable product equivalent on waterfall? So how we calling the minimum viable product on waterfall? Anyone knows? How we call exactly the same? Prototype. Perfect answer. In that sense, thank you much, Ronnie, for this one. Just to remember, we do minimum viable product on Agile. Why? To make sure there is a high customer acceptance on what we do, and that will gain, lots of trust and, so on and so forth. Now that's the same reason why we're doing the prototype on waterfall. But the difference is that the minimum viable product on Agile is default, whereas on waterfall is nice to have. Is not a mandatory requirement, but it will be very, very useful. But in terms of the concept, the meaning of a minimum viable product / the prototype is exactly the same. Okay, so just a key thing to remember. Well done. Correct answer was B. Let's move to the next one. What is the role of a configuration management system? Track change requests, prioritize product backlog, control versioning of all components, define roles and responsibilities. Purushottam? Yes, please. You would like to take this question?
No, I would like to ask
Why?
one question with respect to previous question.
Okay, I will answer that, but before that, you make a call which one is the correct.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I have one answer, 2 answers, which are looking into C as the correct answer. Anyone has any other guess? Now, Purushottam, You better come, off mute now and let's discuss, okay? You there? Oh, okay. So looking into this question, so this is again configuration management system. So lengthy. Now, do we do configuration on Agile / management systems on Agile? No, we don't. So this is again will be a waterfall question. So let's have a look. Tracking change requests. Well, that's why we have the integrated change control. So this is not a good idea. Prioritize product backlog. So this is a waterfall question. Waterfall answer, not good. Agile, this is an agile answer. So this is not good because that's an agile answer. Control versioning of all components. That sounds very reasonable and that's waterfall. But please notice that technically we are down into the best possible two. One is out because this configuration system has nothing to do with changes. B is out because product backlog is agile. So we are down into the best possible two. That's the point you need to be, okay? Every question you need to quickly find the best possible two answers. And after that, you just make a comparison. So control versioning of all components or defining roles and responsibilities. Now, this is a waterfall idea, and this is called the RACI matrix. Now, what we need? Do we need the RACI matrix or configuration? Yes, we need configuration. So correct answer will be C in this case. Okay? Anyone has any question with this one? If you don't have question, can you give me a thumbs up? Perfect. Now, one thing to mention, most of the time you need to use elimination technique. Why? Because you cannot learn every definition by heart, but you can still figure it out. Again, if you know A is for changes, A is out. This is agile, B is out. Now you only compare between C and D. And do not convince yourself otherwise that this is just like a RACI chart. Because even though what the heck is a configuration management system, because I do remember the configuration management plan. But other than that, yeah, that's what a plan, configuration management plan is for the version controlling. But as a system, I don't remember recalling this as an ITTO. So it can be that even all the answers are incorrect or even one better than the other one. All right. So Purushottam, you still there? You have a question regarding the previous one?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the difference between minimum viable product and working software?
That's a very good question. Well, I think as for the theory, that's exactly the same.
Okay, both concepts are same.
Well, I would say, okay, I think the PMI answer will be it depends, because when we talk about the minimum viable product, so we have, this is not just your simple first sprint done. That's something you have already working on some extent. And this has a specific scope. Whereas the working software, I mean, every given sprint can give you a working software, right?
Okay.
And again, I mean, in terms of the timing, you do this first, and then you have the working software afterwards. The VS working software afterwards. Because what this is, this is just a mock-up. How does it work? So give you a good example. My minimum viable product with my mobile app, that I have everything on wireframes. Now wireframes can be, published and used. Well, it is clickable, so in some extent it can be used, but is this a full version? No, it doesn't. Whereas when we started to do development the app, week by week, month by month, that was a working software, which was no longer just a mock-up. Yeah?
Okay. Okay.
Good question, though. Really like that. Very well done.
Thank you.
Okay, next one. Customer collaboration by contract negotiation means Agile asks you not to focus contract negotiations as vendor keep changing. Agile asks you focus on delivery and not on negotiations, as longer negotiations can delay the value delivery. Agile says that collaboration with customer using Agile practices is always preferred. Hence, contract negotiations is not required in this case. D, if you talk to your customer frequently and actually collaborate, you find the contract sometimes doesn't matter. It is the relationship that takes you forward. If you know the correct answer, you can put it into the chat. Okay. Sangamitra, would you mind to help us clarify why this would be D? You pick D?
Yeah. Um, Elimination method basically,
Mm-hmm.
because A, B, and C. See, Agile says customer collaboration over contract negotiation. It does not say that we do not need contract negotiation.
Okay. So let's go one by one.
It's
So you're saying because of, okay, so let's go with A. What's the problem with A?
vendors keep changing and Agile asks you not to focus on contract. I mean,
Okay.
this.
That's not a good idea.
Next, yeah. Next is Agile asks you to focus on the delivery and not on negotiations, as longer negotiations can delay value delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
I
fully agree
mean,
with you. So we are done
and
best possible
C and
too.
D.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, so let's have a look into C first. What's the problem with C?
Agile says that collaboration with the customer using Agile practices is always preferred, and hence contract negotiation is not required in this case. It does not talk about the relationship with the customer at all. I mean,
Mm, okay,
um, contract negotiation not required is a wrong way of putting things. There
okay.
will
Mm-hmm.
be contract negotiation, but you have to put customer collaboration over it. The objective primarily should be to collaborate and include customer feedback.
Okay, all right. Okay, in that case, let's have a look at D. What's the deal with D?
It simply says that if you have a good relationship with your customer, you include them, you collaborate with them, you take their feedback, then the contract will not matter much.
Ah, very good one. Now we have multiple problems, and I think this would be a great example of tough questions you're gonna get on your CAPM exam. Because if I use a different color, let's go with green, like a doctor. So A is not good, B is not good either. Now, what's the problem? So C, until this point, as also Shangamitra mentioned, is that correct? This part is not correct. If you go with D, if you talk to the customer and actually collaborate, that is fine. But contract sometimes doesn't matter. Now, that is something which PMI will never say, even through the values as well. You always have to have a contract. Without contract, there is no goodwill here because that's technically business and they define the best practices. Now, and this is a tough situation. Now, which one is worse comparing the other one? And in that case, you're going to say contract negotiation not required versus it doesn't matter. Now, on that front, C is better. But is C correct as a whole? Is not correct. Is D correct as a whole? Is not correct. But which one is better? C is better comparing with all the answers all together.
Because C says that we have a contract, but we need not negotiate it. Is that what it means?
or not is not required. So we're not saying we're not doing it. If it's just not required and comparing not required with doesn't matter, which is technically we're not even doing it, is simply just better than not doing it.
Okay. Understood.
So
Tricky.
that's why this is a tough question. And if you, yeah, Antonio, exactly like that. All of them are incorrect. If I go with the best practices, what are in the books, what are in the courses, all the answers are incorrect. But technically one is simply least incorrect comparing all the other three. See what I mean? And that's why even for the CAPM, you guys can get